Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to WatchYouWant.com. It's that time of year again. This weekend, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona is rolling out at Daytona Beach, and I've got just the watch of the moment. You are looking at the latest 6-digit reference Rolex Cosmograph Daytona with the in-house Rolex movement in 18-karat white gold. Up in Daytona Beach every year, they hold an annual ritual, and they have since the early 1960s. The 24 Hours of Daytona is a motorsports institution. First held on the beach sands of Daytona Beach, now in the Daytona Motor Speedway, it's lent its name to Rolex's signature chronograph model, or, as Rolex likes to call it, the Cosmograph. This is the Rolex Daytona, and since 1964 it's been inextricably linked to the Speedway and the race of the same name. Now make no mistake, we're not talking NASCAR here, folks. We're talking a competition between the world's premier sports cars, Dodge Vipers, Porsche 911s, BMW Z4Ms, Chevrolet Corvettes, Ferrari 458 Italias, and they're all going at it this weekend. This watch right here is the prize for the proud winners in each class, and it has been the official gift of the Speedway to the winners for decades. This particular model that you see right here might even be a cut above what the winners are going to enjoy this weekend because it's cast in Rolex's own 18-karat white gold, and that's special. Let me tell you a little bit about Rolex and precious metal. Now, stainless is what you get if you win the 24, but gold is the gold standard, and among golds, Rolex gold is the standout. Rolex owns its own foundry, and this is exceptional. In luxury watchmaking, most of the companies that are out there outsource case construction and gold smelting to contractors. The result of that is non-uniform quality, both in the production of the cases themselves. Rolexes are exclusively stamped, never cast. That's the inferior method. So Rolex makes the cases, but they also make the metal, and they blend their own alloys to their own spec. They have a materials science department that has developed a signature white gold, 18 karat as always, but here's the key. It never needs to be rhodium plated. Most of what's called white gold in the industry is anything but. It's actually a milky yellowish white mixture, almost like a bad prepackaged egg white, that doesn't look white in any sense. So after it's poured, it has to be rhodium plated. Really cheap white gold is often nickel plated and can cause all sorts of allergic issues. But the bottom line is other white gold watches will chip and flake and scratch through. If you can think of that look of a scratch on like a PVD black case, that's what you get with most white gold watches from other manufacturers. Now with Rolex, because their special proprietary alloy is straight through homogeneous white, it has that look of platinum or a very high polished steel, and no matter what you do to it, scratches, scuffs, even a little bit of denting and gouging, it's white underneath. That's what you get with Rolex white gold, and because they control the process from top to bottom, they can assure that level of quality. And you're getting more gold than just the case, because the dial itself features an applied white gold Rolex 5-point coronet logo, gold hands, and applied gold Arabic numerals. This is a very classy, classic, sporty look. Applied Arabic numerals on a white background with the concentric circular grained inlaid metallic subdials is an awesome aesthetic for the Rolex Daytona, and some have said that short of the exotic dials, the so-called Paul Newmans, this is the ultimate look for a sports-oriented Rolex Daytona. If you don't want to go for the formal look with the Daytona, applied Arabics on a white background with those metal subdial rings, that is classic and it is killer. Now beyond the case, inside beats the heartbeat. This is the heart of the modern Rolex Daytona. This is the caliber 4130. This is what Rolex developed by itself in its own factories to replace the famed El Primero, and they one-up the old Zenith caliber in almost every way. Vertical clutch, column wheel actuation as always. It starts and stops like butter. It's got the rifle bolt precision of a column wheel with the crisp, precise actuation of a vertical clutch. There's no play between the gears as there is in a horizontal clutch. If you can imagine gears meshing, a little bit of play between them, a little bit of wiggle and waggle to the chronograph seconds when you start it, stop it, and reset it. With a vertical clutch, it's either engaged or disengaged. There's no intermediate as the gears begin to mesh, so there's no jumping or staggering, and it always resets to zero. Plus, with a 72-hour power reserve, you're basically 20-upping the old El Primero, with 20 hours more autonomy between winds than you would get with the old Zenith caliber. While that might be a classic, this is state-of-the-art. And your watchmaker will appreciate it too, because the caliber 4130 is infinitely more serviceable and more easily serviced outside of Swiss channels than the previous El Primero. You don't have to have a degree in rocket scientist, merely experience and competence to service the Rolex movement. The El Primero is an exotic. This watch, in addition to being more modern, is also more serviceable, more hardy, and requires fewer specialized lubricants to keep it running properly. And as ever with Rolex, it's a COSC certified chronometer, which means that it meets the standards of the Swiss COSC agency. No more than 6 seconds of time gained per 24 hours, and never more than 4 seconds lost. But Rolex goes one step further. With their chronometer watches, they certify them to chronometer standards in-house after the certification of the movement. They put it in the case it up, seal it, water test it, and then make sure it still meets COSC standards. That is unique. Other watchmakers, with the exception of Omega, I believe, pretty much take the movement, they take the certificate, they say that's that, they put it in the case, and they send it off. And anyone who's ever worked around watches, anyone who has bench time will tell you that a movement in a case is a completely different animal. You can go from COSC to absolutely loopy just by putting a movement in a case. So Rolex goes that extra mile to make sure the watch is still a chronometer as delivered, not just as a bare movement. So kudos to Rolex for doing so. In every respect, the 4130 is the modern standard for a premium chronograph movement. Rolex sets the standard inside and out with their own gold poured, smelted to their standards, and their own movement built to their standards. This watch comes from one of the most vertically integrated watchmakers in the business and the premium name, not just in the world of luxury watches, but in all of branding. You talk about the premium brand names of the world, you talk about the Sonys, the Lexus, the Rolex. These are names that transcend their industry. They are bywords for quality. They have enduring value. This watch is recognizable as a Daytona. Had it been around in 1964, the owners of those first Rolex prize watches at the 24 hours would have recognized this as one of their own. And I guarantee you, 50 years from now, I can't tell you what they'll be racing at the 24 hours of Daytona. Hover cars, maybe, but I can guarantee you this. This Rolex Daytona will be just as recognizable for what it is, what it represents, where it's been, and it will remain a byword for value and performance in the luxury watch segment. I'm Tim, and check this watch out on our website, watchyouwant.com.